There we go. Another one down in the books. We did it. We made it. We got to the end. We've seen it. And now, as is tradition, I must give my final thoughts. This is definitely the most epic game we've played so far. Hands down. I'm not going to argue with that. It's just, it's globe spanning. It is. I once wrote that Final Fantasy IV, from what little I had played in my youth, always felt like the Lord of the Rings of the series. And it really does feel like that. It brings up all these different things and kind of spans across running themes and complicated, interesting characters that go through and develop and change. It's something that hadn't been done so far in the series. It was something that where it really made good use of all the new storage space and technology that jumping to the Super Nintendo brought. And with that, I mean, it just kind of sold me, like, epic fantasy type stuff. I suppose in terms of negatives, though, I would probably say that there were at least a few. There were some times where things just kind of drifted off and I wasn't sure what to make of it. Like, you completely forget Edward was in the game for a while. You find him in Troya, he's recovering, and then he's nowhere until the end. He doesn't show up again until like one small cutscene in the scene where you fight the Giant of Babel, and then boom, nothing until the very end. He just barely becomes a plot element at all. And I get that his story was more or less done, but no one else got treated to that level, including other people that ended up getting bedridden. And I suppose that would also be kind of part of my big complaint, is that how many fake-out deaths there were in this story. One or two I can get. It's a very long story, and it makes sense that sometimes there'd be some dramatic points where you're like, what happened? Are they okay? But it's like, every time they needed a plot beat, someone risks their life, nobly sacrificing themselves for the cause, only to then just be found out that they're just in a bed somewhere. That happens 3 times in the second half of the game, and it just was one of those things where it's like, I can't take sacrifices seriously anymore. I kept expecting Tella to come back, to the point where when he first finally showed up at that little thing at the very end with the Zeromus fight, I was sitting there going, did I forget something? Did I actually forget that Tella is actually dead? Because I thought they no-sold his death too. Because that's just where the game was going with it. I mean, I get that. I was going to say, it's like, this is like, oh, well, you know, this is very early on in the series, and death is something that they really don't want to deal with. It's very heavy subject matter. But they've killed a bunch of people in the other 3, especially 2 and 3. 2 especially. A lot of people died in 2. In fact, all the people who died in 2 had their own little afterlife adventure that got added on into the Game Boy Advance version. So many people died in 2 that they literally could have made another party out of them. So when it comes down to it, it just felt like over and over and over, and a lot of it was like, why? What was the point of saving Yang? I don't know. I mean, there wasn't exactly anything plot-wise other than, yeah, he becomes the king of Fabul at the end. But Fabul already had a king. The other king just stepped down. So it's not like even like, oh, well, someone has to take the throne. No, the throne was fine. So why did Yang, out of everyone, live? Sid lived. Why? He doesn't do anything in the last half. So, I mean, and then it makes all the sacrifices and all the emotion that comes afterwards pointless. Because you find out, oh, they've just been kicking it in a bed. That would be my biggest complaint, was just how many times that happened. As I said, I understand if they did that once, and I mean, the first time they did it with Rydia, falling off the boat on Leviathan, great! That was really well done. You actually were concerned for her, and when she came back, there was some real narrative weight to that. But at the same time, you lost Edward. And Edward just ends up in a bed in Troya. And he doesn't even contribute to that plot. Like, there's nothing there that goes on that you can't sit there and go, oh yeah, you know, that's, we needed Edward to help us get through that. Or, oh, good thing Edward was here to convince the leadership of Troya to work with us. No! Complete afterthought. It was solely for a plot point about, like, him playing a harp, which ended up nullifying the Dark Elf's thing. Which, again, was just padding. So he could have died, and that would have actually led to even greater weight if you found his grave when you made it to Troya. And it's like, oh yes, we found his body, he washed ashore, he was so damaged and broken that, hey, he could not survive his injuries, and he perished, and we, gave him this place of honor and things like that. The only reason he gets to live is because Damcian does not have a hierarchy, but Damcian doesn't have a kingdom either. Like, they are off the map at this point. You could have honestly just had the survivors live in Baron, which would have, been some consolation since it was Baron that bombed them. But then at least that would have added some narrative weight to, like, oh my god, what happened to Rydia? Because she was just a little girl when we last saw her and she fell off the boat. Oh crap. Yang, on the other hand, got to come back from the dead twice. And at least the first time he joins your party for a while. Comes back as evil for a little bit. Why? I guess Zemus took control of him too? Because there was evil in his heart that he could foster? Like, but Yang didn't seem like... I have no idea. There were some weird hiccups in the plot like that. Where it's just kind of like... Felt very much like a DM just kind of, or a game master just kind of going, yes, here's something to get along with the plot. And at least served a little bit because, it reinforced the whole mind control thing, which continued to be a plot point, considering how many times it happened to Cain. But then eventually gets revealed that Golbez, in turn, is also under mind control by someone else, who you never even get to fight. Now compare that to, let's throw in the crowning moment of awesome in this game, which was not the final battle, not the going to the center of the moon to face an imprisoned alien warlord whose evil is so strong and hatred is so strong that it literally manifests into a demon. I'm talking about the Giant of Babel fight, when literally every kingdom you have interacted and helped with the entire game unites all into one giant battle to help you get a chance at taking down this world-destroying robot that has just shown up on your planet. That was cool. That was great. That moment of unity, even though it ended up contributing to that previous no-cell death thing with Palom and Porum, which I mean, they were just petrified. They weren't dead. I'm not surprised that they were able to come back from that. But at the same time, why couldn't we have done it? I mean, we literally walked past them at one point. Way after the fact. And we could have just, gold needle, poke. I don't know. So, what will I say? Do I like it better than 3, which was my current highlight? I don't know. Like, it definitely feels like a grander story than 3. But 3 just had all of the elements working together so well. Like, it didn't feel like anything was loose. The character deaths, when they happened, felt like they had some weight. It didn't ever feel like it no-sold your actions, except for the dude who killed himself in the tower to save it, and then you find out that he just hops out of it later on. That kind of sucked. I don't know. If anything, so far, if I had to make a tier ranking, I might put this on par with 3. So yeah, I'd put this one on par with 3, and then 1, and then 2 at the bottom, because, as I've said on Twitter, let there be no debate in the Final Fantasy community, 2 is the worst. And I know there's probably someone out there like, I like 2. Well, okay, but, I mean, masochists are a thing. Oh, I suppose I should also talk about the fact that this is actually our first, romantic story as well in the games. With Rosa and Cecil, and actually a love triangle with Cain, although, really, there's no contest. Cain doesn't have a chance from the get-go. He just pines from a distance because he wants, what they have. It's a very Wolverine, Jean Grey, Cyclops thing. where it's like, it's no doubt from the get-go that Rosa and Cecil are a thing, and Kane just wants what Cecil has, Jesse's girl style. And I thought that was actually really well done. Like, some of the emotional moments with Rosa and Cecil are actually really touching in terms of, like, believing that these two people actually care for each other and actually, I mean, are romantically entangled in some way. It's not like they fall in love through the course of the story. They pretty much established from the get-go as being romantically interested in each other. And it's not till, like, Rosa almost loses her life in the process that Cecil's just kind of, like, gets his head out of his butt about, you know, doing something about it. But then her showing up on the moon, which I called it, and the big, you know, her big damn kiss moment with Cecil, that was very touching. I know I make jokes while I'm doing these streams, but that honestly was very touching to me. Same with another good emotional moment that really got to me was Palom and Porum's sacrifice. Them kind of turning themselves to stone to save everyone else. They're kids. They should not be considering, like, throwing their lives away like that, but they do it in a heartbeat, and it's wrenching, which is saying something for a game like this, that they can make you feel that way about those two. I'm glad that they were covered. I was really happy to see them back. I just thought, at a twist of mechanics, like, oh yeah, the Elder cured us. Okay. I mean, we had some interesting villains. Golbez, not everything he's chalked up to what he seems. Rubicant, great character, great noble evil warrior type, dark warrior type. Blood Knight, very concerned about honor and having a good fight and having a great battle. Heals you every time, sometimes to my frustration. I like the idea of the fact that it's like slowly indicated, like, there's this advanced technology. Okay. At first it seems kind of fantastical, but then you find out, no, it is just technology. It's very advanced technology. It's that whole thing about how advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and because of that, you end up slowly getting through this game, and you're just going, oh, and then finally you get to the moon, and it's just kind of like, where did all this advanced technology come from? By the way, aliens. Of course, the revelation that it's supposed to be our Earth is a weird choice. Illusion of Gaia did the same thing around the same time on the Super Nintendo, and I thought that was really weird. But at least that one ended with the game, like, with the world, like, shifting into a, transforming itself through magic into the world we know. Whereas this one, I don't remember a giant hole that goes into the land of the dwarves being in South America. My wife apparently thinks the Lunarians are going to come and take our jobs. But they're not even Lunarians. I mean, they live on a moon. There's 2 moons, which I never caught before. And I said the 2 moons used to be one. I don't even think that's true. There used to just be 1 moon. And then the Lunarians built another one to sleep in. And then it took off at the end to go to parts unknown. So they're not even from there. They're from some other planet that used to be between Mars and Jupiter. Which I'm just now occurring to me that it might be indicating that the planet that the Lunarians originally came from became the asteroid belt? I don't even know if that's how that works. But yeah, I think that is just... That was some of the... Real good game. Really liked it. Really had fun there, except for right at the end, where the final boss is insane, and apparently that varies so much on version to version of the game and port to port over the years, that sometimes you can have a real easy time with this guy, and then in some versions of the game, he is darn near unkillable unless you grind a ton. And I just hope that does not become a trend going ahead. I mean, I know once you get to 7, I was able to beat that one before without too much in the way of grinding. So really, I'm really just kind of worried about 5. Because I've never played 5. Speaking of which, that's the next game of the series. We'll be starting on that here, sometime here in October. But yeah, we're going to get started on that one. It'll be the last Final Fantasy game I have not played. No, we're not going to be doing the After Years with this one. Because maybe we'll come back to it. How about that? I'll make that wager. Maybe if we can get enough people to tell me, you out there in the audience, you have the power. If enough people tell me, I want to see you cover the After Years, maybe I'll go back and do it. But right now I'm going to continue with the main series.